বেসিক রিসার্চ সেন্টারের পক্ষ থেকে আজকের সেন্টারের টপিক হলো simultaneous removal of heavy metal and humic acid using manganese oxides and boehmite. আজকে আমাদের গেস্ট হলেন ডক্টর মোহাম্মদ আমিনুল ইসলাম। উনি ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় থেকে এমএস এবং পিএইচডি কমপ্লিট করেছেন, এরপর M.Phil করেছেন বুয়েটে এবং অস্ট্রেলিয়াতে তার পিএইচডি করেছেন। স্যার প্লিজ স্টার্ট।
Hi everyone. In the beginning, I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to present my research here. Dear audience, this presentation is a part of my PhD thesis, which has been carried out at Blackrock University, Melbourne, Australia. Initially, I would like to talk a little background of my project. Soil and soil oxide mineral. Soil is the main component of our ecosystem. It is mainly composed of mineral particles, natural organic matters, air, water, and countless microorganisms. Mineral particles are two types: primary minerals and secondary minerals. Primary minerals are consist from the origin, and secondary minerals are consist from the primary minerals. So these are the list of primary minerals of iron, aluminium, manganese and others. Our research group are working more than 20 years with iron and aluminium minerals. And I have introduced manganese oxide probably for the first time in Australia as adsorbent to remove heavy metal ions and pollutants. Manganese oxide. Manganese oxides are ubiquitous in soil, sediment and aquatic environment. There are mainly two sources of manganese oxide. The first one is natural and another one is anthropogenic sources. Natural sources include oxides, silicate, carbonate, phosphate and BUET minerals. On the other hand, anthropogenic sources include wastewater discharge, mining, mineral processing and conversion of fossil fuels. This study is very relevant to Australia because Australia produces 50% of the world's manganese ore and ranked third behind China and South Africa. However, the application of manganese oxide is very relevant to Bangladesh because we are facing a lot of environmental problems in recent years. Then, manganese is probably the most wonderful element in the periodic table. Due to various oxidation states, several polymoles of manganese oxides are claimed. These are the list of various polymoles of manganese oxide. However, our research interests to deal with pyrolusite, barnesite, austenite, and manganite because these four minerals are the prime minerals found in soil and comprise of structural variation. Then structure. The basic building block for all manganese oxide is MnO6 octahedra, and due to defined arrangement of MnO6 octahedra, mainly three types of structure are found. The first one is thiolomanganates, which manganese oxide containing four cations assembled in two-dimensional layers of H sharing, and typical example is barnesite, where between two MnO6 octahedra there is an interlayer spacing where cations or water molecules reside. And the second one is tectumanganate, where chain or tunnel framework structure and corners of the octahedra are shared to form tunnels. Typical example is pyrolusite. The third one is spinel-like structure. Example is austenite. And the final one is manganite, where it is distorted spinel-like structure. And it is very important to mention here that these four structures can be interchangeable by temperature. Then why manganese oxide? As I said, it is the most wonderful element in the periodic table, and manganese comprises 0.1% of the earth crust. Manganese is a component of more than 100 minerals of phosphate, sulfides, oxides, carbonates, and there is a huge research gap of manganese oxide in terms of heavy metal ions and pollutants removal. And it is found that heavy metals have strong affinity for manganese oxide compared to iron and aluminium oxide. However, very little attention is paid to the environmentally important manganese oxide. And especially we don't know how different pollutants interact with these manganese oxides. We have also used boehmite, which is a typical mineral of aluminium oxide, to compare our results. Then why heavy metals? Due to rapid urbanization and industrial revolution, a large volume of wastewater is generated. This wastewater primarily contains heavy metal ions, organic dyes, and humic substances. And contamination of these heavy metals posing a huge threat to our ecological environment. Exposure to high levels of cobalt and nickel can cause severe health troubles. On the other hand, chromium is ranked top 16 toxic pollutants. Excess chromium can cause diarrhea, kidney failure, liver diseases, respiratory troubles, ulcer formation, etc. So it is very important to remove these pollutants before they are released into the environment. Now the question is, how can we remove these pollutants? Well, it's simple, using manganese. Well, then why humic acid? Humic acid is a well-known natural organic matter formed from the breakdown of plant, animal matter, and organism. The presence of humic acid in waterways can cause undesirable color, nasty odor, and taste. It can react with water purification reagents to form disinfection byproducts, which are harmful for our health. And high intake of humic acid can cause leg, foot, joint, circulatory, thyroid, and autoimmune diseases. So it is essential to remove this excess amount of humic acid from waterways. Then why simultaneous removal? Multiple pollutants and contaminants present in aquatic environment, and the behavior of a particular metal species is affected by the presence of others in soil system. This complex system can be understood only by considering simultaneous removal. So, it is important to study simultaneous removal using our adsorbents. So, considering the importance of research, the research goal of the present study were to study the surface properties of important manganese oxide and boehmite, and to study the superior removal performance of cobalt, nickel, chromate, and humic acid using these substrates, and finally to study the mechanism of absorption. So these are the experimental techniques. To approach surface properties, we have used XRD, SEM, EDX, BUET surface area analyzer, dynamic light scattering, ATI, FTIR, and XPS. On the other hand, for absorption study, we have used atomic absorption spectrophotometer, UV visible, ATI, FTIR, PLS, and XPS. Then we have synthesized adsorbents. Typically, we have used 6 different adsorbents to remove heavy metal ions and humic acid. The first one is farmgate, which was synthesized using a system containing potassium permanganate and manganese sulfate at room temperature. The second one was processed. The third one was synthesized using manganese sulfate and sodium hydroxide. The fourth one was synthesized using manganese sulfate and ammonium hydroxide in presence of hydrogen peroxide. The fifth one was boehmite, which was processed. And the last one was prepared by mixing barnesite and boehmite during absorption experiments. Then surface characterization, XRD. So these are the typical XRD patterns for barnesite, pyrolusite, austenite, manganite and boehmite. So from this factor, it is clearly seen that for barnesite and manganite, the peaks are relatively broad and not too intense. This indicates that these two substrates are amorphous in nature. On the other hand, in case of pyrolusite, austenite and boehmite, peaks are relatively intense and sharp, indicating crystalline nature. And here I have included the results for XRD. So from this we can see that the crystalline size for this surface where which have been calculated using Scherer's equation. Then SEM study for high different surface. So it is important to see that in case of barnesite, the particle size are too small to compare with other surfaces, and in case of pyrolusite, it's clearly showing the crystalline nature, and on the other hand, in case of other three surfaces, they are aggregated particles. Then we have performed elemental analysis. So from this elemental analysis, we see that in case of barnesite, primarily manganese and oxygen peaks are observed, and however, there is some potassium and aluminum which may be for synthesis process, and carbon and aluminum for the system. So from this study, it can be said that our substrates were free from impurity and single phase. Then Bronner image surface area and porosity analysis. So from this table we see that the bed surface area for barnesite is higher than other surface, and if we compare the IUPAC classification of porosity, we see that pore diameter within the range of 4 to 27. It means that all substrates are mesoporous in structure. Then, point of zero cell. This is very important for absorption study because manganese oxide minerals are amphoteric in nature, and due to change of pH, these surfaces are protonated and deprotonated, producing positive and negatively charged surface. However, under certain pH, the concentration of positively charged surface and concentration of negatively charged surface are equal. That pH is known as point of zero surge. For example, I have estimated the point of zero surge using dynamic light scattering by measuring zeta potential, and we have found for barnesite point of zero surge is 2.5. It means that below 2.5 the surface is positively charged, and beyond 2.5 the surface is negatively charged, which implying that in case of negatively charged surface, positively, for example, heavy metals will be readily absorbed onto this surface. Then we have performed absorption experiments. This is very unique experimental system. It is known as continuous mode experiment system, in which the suspension was in the reaction vessel. Here we have shown the reaction vessel for the entire period of experiments, and these are the experimental conditions. We have studied absorption kinetics, absorption ages, absorption isotherm, and surface charge shifting to understand what actually happens when various pollutants absorb onto the surface. Then, figure shows a typical example of cobalt absorption kinetics. So from this result, we see that the amount of cobalt absorbed increased very rapidly with increasing contact time and reached equilibrium within less than 20 minutes. It means that chemical absorption rather than physical absorption take place, and absorption is a very rapid process. Almost similar results was found for other substrate. Then absorption phases, that means effect of solution pH for 6 different substrates. So we see that at low pH absorption is nearly zero, then absorption increases and becomes almost 100%. This is due to the various surface properties, because each surface has different point of zero source. So this is likely to occur for every surface. Then we have studied cobalt absorption isotherms at pH 6 and 8.5. So we can see that at pH 8.5, in case of barnesite, boehmite and mixed manganese oxide, absorption increased, then reached saturation point. On the other hand, in case of pyrolusite and other surface at pH 8.5, absorption reached saturation point, then further absorption occurred, which indicates bulk surface precipitation. This straight line indicating the surface complexation modeling, which I will explain later, and this dot line indicates Langmuir and Francis modeling. And to compare our results, we have also put our absorption-based results, which are indicated by this. It is in agreement with our absorption-based results. Then surface charge and cobalt absorption. So if we see the figure, we see that in case of barnesite and manganite, after absorption of cobalt, the point of zero charge has been shifted. Based on literature, only in case of inner state complexation, which held at the zero plane or surface plane. So in case of inner state complexation, point of zero charge or surface charge is changed. On the other hand, in case of outer state complexation, it has no impact on surface charge, which occurred in case of austenite and pyrolusite. Then we have studied probate absorption phases, and here is the effect of solution pH. So in case of barnesite, we can see that the amount of chromium absorbed decrease with increasing solution pH. On the other cases, absorption first slightly increases, reaches maximum, then decreases. This is primarily occur for surface properties. Then we have studied humic acid absorption cases. So, and here dot line indicates the solubility of humic acid, and amount of absorption can be estimated by the difference between solubility and absorption. So again we see that in case of barnesite, absorption decreased with increasing pH, and due to different surface properties, different shapes of absorption phase occur. And it is very interesting to see here for manganese aluminum binary oxide, which has been prepared by mixing this and that. So we see that absorption behavior is looking like this. That means in case of mixed aluminum manganese oxide, boehmite is dominating humic acid absorption due to higher point of zero source. Then simultaneous removal of cobalt in presence of nickel. So blank line indicates the simultaneous removal, while closed circle indicates individual cobalt removal. So from this we see that in almost all cases the presence of nickel decreases the amount of cobalt absorbed. So this is due to the competition of both metal ions for a finite or limited number of surface sites. Then we have studied simultaneous removal of cobalt in presence of chromium. As mentioned earlier, almost all cases, the presence of chromium decreases the amount of cobalt absorbed. This could be due to the formation of
সবাইকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি বেসিক রিসার্চ সেন্টারের পক্ষ থেকে আজকের সেমিনারে। আজকের সেমিনারের টপিক হলো simultaneous removal of heavy metal and humic acid using manganese oxides and boehmite. আজকে আমাদের গেস্ট হলেন ডক্টর মোহাম্মদ আমিনুল ইসলাম। তিনি ঢাকা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় থেকে এমএস এবং পিএইচডি কমপ্লিট করেছেন, এরপর M.Phil করেছেন বুয়েটে এবং অস্ট্রেলিয়াতে তার ট্রেনিং করেছেন।
Hi everyone. In the beginning, I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to present my research here. Dear audience, this presentation is a part of my PhD thesis, which has been carried out at Lathrop University, Melbourne, Australia. Initially, I would like to talk a little background of my project. Soil and soil oxide mineral. Soil is the main component of Earth ecosystem. It is mainly composed of mineral particles, natural organic matters, air, water, and countless microorganisms. Mineral particles are two types: primary minerals and secondary minerals. Primary minerals are consist from the origin, and secondary minerals are consist from the primary minerals. So these are the list of primary minerals of iron, aluminium, manganese, and others. Our research group are working more than 20 years with iron and aluminium minerals. And I have introduced manganese oxide probably for the first time in Australia as adsorbent to remove heavy metal ions and pollutants. Manganese oxide. Manganese oxides are ubiquitous in soil, sediment, and aquatic environment. There are mainly two sources of manganese oxide. The first one is natural and another one is anthropogenic sources. Natural sources include oxide, silicate, carbonate, phosphate, and BUET minerals. On the other hand, anthropogenic sources include wastewater discharge, mining, mineral processing, and conversion of fossil fuels. This study is very relevant to Australia because Australia produces 50% of the world's manganese ore and ranked third behind China and South Africa. However, the application of manganese oxide is very relevant to Bangladesh because we are facing a lot of environmental problems in recent years. Then, manganese is probably the most wonderful element in the periodic table. Due to various oxidation states, several polymoles of manganese oxides are claimed. These are the list of various polymoles of manganese oxide. However, our research interests to deal with pyrolusite, barnesite, austenite, and manganite because these four minerals are the prime minerals found in soil and comprise of structural variation. Then structure. the basic building block for all manganese oxide is MnO6 octahedra, and due to defined arrangement of MnO6 octahedra, mainly three types of structure are found. The first one is phyllomanganates, which manganese oxide containing four cations assembled in two-dimensional layers of H sharing, and typical example is barnesite, where between two MnO6 octahedra there is a interlayer spacing where cations or water molecules reside. And the second one is tectumanganate, where chain or tunnel frame structure and corners of the octahedra are shared to form tunnels. Typical example is pyrolusite. The third one is spinel-like structure. Example is austenite. And the final one is manganite, where it is distorted spinel-like structure. And it is very important to mention here that these four structures can be interchangeable by temperature. Then why manganese oxide? As I said, it is the most wonderful element in the periodic table, and manganese comprises 0.1% of the Earth's crust. Manganese is a component of more than 100 minerals of phosphate, sulfides, oxides, carbonates, and there is a huge research gap of manganese oxide in terms of heavy metal ions and pollutants removal. And it is found that heavy metals have strong affinity for manganese oxide compared to iron and aluminium oxide. However, very little attention is paid to the environmentally important manganese oxide. And especially we don't know how different pollutants interact with these manganese oxides. We have also used boehmite, which is a typical mineral of aluminium oxide, to compare our results. Then why heavy metals? Due to rapid urbanization and industrial revolution, a large volume of wastewater is generated. This wastewater primarily contains heavy metal ions, organic dyes, and humic substances. And contamination of these heavy metals posing a huge threat to our ecological environment. Exposure to high levels of cobalt and nickel can cause severe health troubles. On the other hand, chromium is ranked top 16 toxic pollutants. Excess chromium can cause diarrhea, kidney failure, liver diseases, respiratory troubles, ulcer formation, etc. So it is very important to remove these pollutants before they are released into the environment. Now the question is, how can we remove these pollutants? Well, it's simple, using manganese oxide. Well,
ওটা খুলে লাগাও পয়েন্টারের কয়েলটা ওটা খুলে আবার লাগানো, হ্যাঁ এটা খুলে আবার লাগানো।
Well, then why humic acid? Humic acid is a well-known natural organic matter formed from the breakdown of plant, animal matter and organism. The presence of humic acid in waterways can cause undesirable color, nasty odor and taste. It can react with water purification reagents to form disinfection byproducts, which are harmful for our health. And high intake of humic acid can cause black foot, joint, circulatory, thyroid, and autoimmune diseases. So it is essential to remove this excess amount of humic acid from waterways. Then why simultaneous removal? Multiple pollutants and contaminants present in aquatic environment, and the behavior of a particular metal species is affected by the presence of others in soil system. This complex system can be understood only by considering simultaneous removal. So, it is important to study simultaneous removal using our adsorbents. So, considering the importance of research, the research goal of the present study were to study the surface properties of important manganese oxide and boehmite, and to study the superior removal performance of cobalt, nickel, chromate and humic acid using these substrates, and finally to study the mechanism of absorption. So these are the experimental techniques. To approach surface properties, we have used XRD, SEM, EDX, BUET surface area analyzer, dynamic light scattering, ATI, FTIR, and XPS. On the other hand, for absorption study, we have used atomic absorption spectrophotometer, UV visible, ATI, FTIR, PLS, and XPS. Then we have synthesized adsorbents. Typically, we have used 6 different adsorbents to remove heavy metal ions and humic acid. The first one is barnesite, which was synthesized using a system containing potassium permanganate and manganese sulfate at room temperature. The second one was fastest. The third one was synthesized using manganese sulfate and sodium hydroxide. The fourth one was synthesized using manganese sulfate and ammonium hydroxide in presence of hydrogen peroxide. The fifth one was boehmite, which was fastest. And the last one was prepared by mixing barnesite and boehmite during absorption experiments. Then surface characterization, XRD. So these are the typical XRD patterns for barnesite, pyrolusite, phosphonite, manganite and boehmite. So from this spectra, it is clearly seen that for barnesite and manganite, the peaks are relatively broad and not too intense. This indicates that these two substrates are amorphous in nature. On the other hand, in case of pyrolusite, phosphonite and boehmite, peaks are relatively intense and sharp, indicating crystalline nature. And here I have included the results for XRD. So from this we can see that the crystalline size for this surface were this, which have been calculated using Scherer's equation. Then SEM study for high different surface. So it is important to see that in case of barnesite, the particle size are too small to compare with other surfaces, and in case of pyrolusite, it's clearly showing the crystalline nature, and on the other hand, in case of other three surfaces, they are aggregated particles. Then we have performed elemental analysis. So from this elemental analysis, we see that in case of barnesite, primarily manganese and oxygen peaks are observed, and however, there is some potassium and aluminum which may be for synthesis process, and carbon and aluminum for the system. So from this study, it can be said that our substrates were free from impurity and single phase. Then broader image surface area and porosity analysis. So from this table, we see that the bed surface area for barnesite is higher than other surface, and if we compare the IUPAC classification of porosity, we see that pore diameter within the range of 4 to 27. It means that all substrates are mesoporous in structure. Then, point of zero cell. This is very important for absorption study because manganese oxide minerals are amphoteric in nature, and due to change of pH, these surfaces are protonated and deprotonated, producing positive and negatively charged surface. However, under certain pH, the concentration of positively charged surface and concentration of negatively charged surface are equal. That pH is known as point of zero source. For example, I have estimated the point of zero source using dynamic light scattering by measuring zeta potential, and we have found for barnesite point of zero source is 2.5. It means that below 2.5 the surface is positively charged, and beyond 2.5 the surface is negatively charged, which implying that in case of negatively charged surface, positively, for example, heavy metals will be readily absorbed onto this surface. Then we have performed absorption experiments. This is very unique experimental system, which is known as continuous mode experiment system, in which the suspension was in the reaction vessel. Here we have shown the reaction vessel for the entire period of experiments, and these are the experimental conditions. We have studied absorption kinetics, absorption ages, absorption isotherm, and surface charge shifting to understand what actually happens when various pollutants absorb onto the surface. Then, figure shows a typical example of cobalt absorption kinetics. So from this result, we see that the amount of cobalt absorbed increased very rapidly with increasing contact time and reached equilibrium within less than 20 minutes. It means that chemical absorption rather than physical absorption take place, and absorption is a very rapid process. Almost similar results was found for other substrates. Then absorption ages, that means effect of solution pH for 6 different substrates. So we see that at low pH absorption is nearly zero, then absorption increases and becomes almost 100%. This is due to the various surface properties, because each surface has different point of zero source. So this is likely to occur for every surface. Then we have studied cobalt absorption isotherms at pH 6 and 8.5. So we can see that at pH 8.5, in case of barnesite, boehmite and mixed manganese oxide, absorption increased, then reached saturation point. On the other hand, in case of pyrrolysite and other surface at is 8.5 adsorption risk cessation point, then further adsorption occurs, which indicates bulk surface precipitation. This straight line indicating the surface complexation modeling, which I will explain later, and this dot line indicates Langmuir and Francis modeling. And to compare our results, we have also put our absorption base results, which are indicated by this. It is in agreement with our absorption base results. Then surface charge and cobalt adsorption. So if we see the figure, we see that in case of barnesite and manganite, after adsorption of cobalt, the point of zero charge has been shifted. Based on literature, only in case of inner star complexation, which held at the zero plane or surface plane. So in case of inner star complexation, point of zero charge or surface charge is changed. On the other hand, in case of outer star complexation, it has no impact on surface charge, which occurred in case of austenite and pyrolusite. Then we have started proben adsorption phases, and here is the effect of solution pH. So in case of barnesite, we can see that the amount of chromium adsorption decrease with increasing solution pH. On the other cases, adsorption first slightly increases, risk maximum then decreases. This is primarily occur for surface properties. Then we have studied humic acid adsorption phases. So, and here dot line indicates the solubility of humic acid, and amount of adsorption can be estimated by the difference between solubility and absorption. So again we see that in case of barnesite, adsorption decreased with increasing pH, and due to different surface properties, different shapes of adsorption phase occur. And it is very interesting to see here for manganese aluminum binary oxide, which has been prepared by mixing this and that. So we see that adsorption behavior is looking like this. That means in case of mixed aluminum manganese oxide, boehmite is dominating humic acid adsorption due to higher point of zero charge. Then simultaneous removal of cobalt in presence of nickel. So blank line indicates the simultaneous removal, while closed circle indicates individual cobalt removal. So from this we see that in almost all cases the presence of nickel decreases the amount of cobalt adsorbed. So this is due to the competition of both metal ions for a finite or limited number of surface sites. Then we have studied simultaneous removal of cobalt in presence of chromium. As mentioned earlier, almost all cases, the presence of chromium decreased the amount of cobalt adsorbed. This could be due to the formation of solution or competition between cobalt and chromium in solution for a finite number of surface sites. Then we have studied simultaneous removal of chromium in presence of humic acid. Here chromium, hexavalent chromium is anion and humic acid is also anion. So here we also see that the presence of humic acid also decreases the amount of chromium adsorb. This could be due to the electrostatic repulsion between negatively charged chromium and anionic humic acid. Then we have studied absorption data modeling using CO2 first order, second order, Langmuir and Stanley's isotope. So in most cases, CO2 second order equation fitted the experimental data very well, and Langmuir model was also explain our data very well, implying that most metal ions and humic acid absorb onto homogeneous surface by forming monolayer. These are the results for a typical cobalt absorption at pH 8.5, and from this table we see that Barneside exhibited maximum absorption of cobalt, and boehmite exhibited lowest absorption of cobalt under our experimental conditions. Then adsorption mechanism. Adsorption mechanism is usually studied by inner star complexation and outer star complexation. In case of inner star complexation, adsorbate forms covalent or direct bond in the surface. On the other hand, in case of outer star complexation, there is at least one molecule of water between adsorbate and surface. These are the typical examples for the formation of inner star complexation and outer star complexation. Here there is water molecules between surface and adsorbate. So then we have applied surface complexation modeling to understand actually what happens when pollutants are removed from the bulk solution using adsorbents. So there are several types of surface complexation modeling. For example, constant capacitance model, extended constant capacitance model, triple layer model. However, we have used extended constant capacitance model because this is based on Stern triple layer model. It has two sorption layers. The first one is zero plane or surface plane, where strongly bound ions are adsorbed, and the second one is beta plane, where weakly bound species are absorbed. So why we have used this? Because it can predict both inner and outer star complexation and requires less parameters than triple layer models. And previously I have shown the surface complexation modeling fitting for absorption of cobalt and other cases. Here is the speciation of adsorbed cobalt species. This one is outer star complexation, and these two are inner star complexation. So from this speciation, we see that cobalt mainly adsorbed onto the surface by forming outer star complexation at low pH values. On the other hand, inner star complexation at higher pH values. Then we have studied speciation of chromium species, considering one inner star complexation and one outer star complexation. So from this study, we see that inner star complexation formed at low pH and outer star complexation occurred at higher pH due to mutual repulsion between negatively charged surface and anionic chromium species. So these are the key findings. So from this study, we can say that our minerals were single phase, and typical morphologies identified by these techniques. And these are the specific surface area, and these are the point of research. So from Langmuir modeling, we see that Barnett exhibit maximum absorption capacity on cobalt, while pyrolusite and boehmite the smallest one. And surface conflagration modeling indicates the formation of both inner sphere and outer sphere conflagration based on pH. So this study indicates that manganese oxide can be potentially used for the removal of environmental pollutants, especially heavy metal ions. So this is my PhD certificates, and I have dedicated my PhD certificate to the people of Bangladesh and Australia. And then, so far from this project, I have published 4 articles. The first one is manganese oxides and their application to metal ion and contaminant removal from wastewater. This has been published in Journal of Water Process Engineering Elsevier. And the second one is metal ion and contaminant sorption onto aluminum oxide based materials, and which has been also published in the Journal of Environmental Chemical Engineering. The third one is this, and published in Environmental Technology and Monitoring and Management. And the fourth one is just accepted in Journal of Environmental Chemical Engineering, and several others are on the way for publication. And I would like to acknowledge my principal supervisor, Dr. Michael Zhang, for his cooperation and inspiration, and other co-supervisors, experts, examiners, lab mates, and Frank and Goli at RMIT University for surface area measurements, Australian government and Dhaka University for providing me full funding scholarship, and Aminul University of Science and Technology for granting me study for the entire period. And finally, I think I have been able to make friendship forever between Bangladesh and Australia. Thank you so much for your cooperation and well,
28 number slide, I could understand the slide. Extraction of chromium 6 or use of humic acid.
please.
Chromium 6. I guess this slide number 28.
28.
Yes.
Is this? Okay, what's it?
You say chromium 6 anion and humic acid anion. So I can understand how chromium 6 is an anion.
Oh, it's chromate anion. Chromium 6 means there are 2 forms of chromium. One is chromium 3, which is cation, and chromium 6 is hexavalent, which is anion. That means chromate anion. Okay. Sure.
I want to know about the inner surface configuration and outside configuration. How many there was?
Okay, thank you so much for this nice and interesting question. For example, this is surface. This is surface and this is pollutant. Okay. So in case of inner sphere complexation, pollutant directly form bond with the surface like this. It could be van der Waals force of attraction or covalent bond or ionic bond, whatever it is. That means in case of the formation of inner sphere complexation, pollutants will form direct bonds with the surface. On the other hand, in case of outer sphere complexation, between surface and pollutant, there will be a water molecule, at least one water molecule. Okay, that is known as outer sphere complexation. It means in case of inner sphere complexation, there is a strong affinity of pollutants for the surface. On the other hand, for outer sphere complexation, the affinity for the surface is very weak. That's why we call it
Can it be
outer
any other
sphere.
molecule except for water?
Sorry?
In case of outer sphere complex, can it be any other molecule except for water between surface and pollutant?
Usually water, because we use water as universal solvent. So this system contains only water as a solvent. So
Any other
that could be other, for example, ethanol or other solvent if we use. But here we have used water solvent in sodium nitrate electrolyte solution. So the possibility is only water.
So could you mention the pH effect on the absorption?
Yes, that is the absorption age. Absorption age is the study of, this is the absorption age. Effect of pH on
I'm trying to tell that
absorption.
in which pH the absorption favor.
Yes, it depends on the surface. For example, in case of Barnesite, you see here, it's very interesting question. For Barnesite, the maximum absorption occurred at pH 2. So, in case of Barnesite, pH 2 is the optimum pH for chromium absorption. On the other hand, in case of pyrolusite, maximum absorption is near 6. On the other hand, in this case, maximum absorption 6.5 or something. So, pH is the vital effect that rule the absorption of pollutants onto the surface. Because each surface has different surface charge. So, it is likely that the optimum pH will be different for each surface.
So could you give could you predict that what kind of surface is it anionic surface or is it cationic surface? Could you predict?
Yes, it's very interesting question. In case of Barnesite, the point of zero charge is 2.5. On the other hand, in case of boehmite, the point of zero charge is 10.2. Point of zero charge 10.2 means beyond 10.2 the surface is positively charged, and below 10.2 the surface is positively charged, and beyond 10.2 the surface is negatively charged. So that means the whole region is positively charged. So what do we expect? We expect anion will be much more strongly absorbed onto this surface. So that's why we say metal ions are strongly absorbed on this Barnesite type surface, and anion strongly absorbed on this type of surface.
So if we compare the absorption between graphene and graphene oxide, so
Graphene and graphene
yes,
oxide, okay?
on the absorption process. So what is your assumption that the absorption will কোনটাতে বেশি হবে? গ্রাফিন অক্সাইডে absorption বেশি হয় নাকি এটাতে absorption বেশি হয়? এরকম কি
You can't predict now without characterizing the surface properties, because the surface properties of manganese oxide and boehmite is completely different from graphene and graphite oxide. It will depend on the specific surface area and point of zero charge. That's why I tell several points in various conferences that before studying any surface as absorbent, please characterize the surface in terms of specific surface area and point of zero charge.
Join us for this seminar. আমাদের রিসার্চ সেন্টারে প্রায় প্রতি মাসেই সেমিনার হয়, তো আমি এক্সপেক্ট করবো যে আরো বেশি মানুষ থাকবে, আপনারা সবাই আবারও আমাদের সেমিনার অ্যাটেন্ড করবেন। থ্যাংক ইউ।
One more thing, if you have any further question and interest, please you can communicate with our email and Twitter. Please go first. Please. First slide. Here is my email address and here is my Twitter account. If you have any query or further interest, all of you are welcome to communicate with me. Okay. And recently I am now doing job at Aminul University. It's not far from here. So everybody is also welcome to visit our university. Okay, thank you so much. It was really my pleasure to present my research here. It's highly appreciated. Thank you so much. Have a nice time.